Jaja have we back and a shouting.
You're tuned into the Now Morning Show, your Tobago Thursday edition, where we are talking to Speyside High School in the form of the winner of the Chief Sex Art competition and her art teacher, Chris Thomas, who is joining us right now. Mr. Thomas, good morning and welcome to the Now, and congratulations.
Right. Morning to the panel, and by extension, morning to Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. Now, it's Khristiana, is it? Will be joining us shortly as well. But for now, I'm hoping to get a little bit of background on her, because as her art teacher, you technically would have prepared her for this moment. So how would you describe her as a student, first and foremost?
Oh, Khristiana, from a very young age, has been very focused and a very well-rounded student. When it comes to the visual art, she puts her all into not just the art, but the rest of her subjects. And I can attest that with, all of her other teachers that know her. She really does her best.
Now, in terms of the competition itself, could you give us a little insight as to what the prep was like, or at the very least, apart from the grand prize of $10,000, what was the rubric like, so that Christina would have been a shining example of? Khristiana, rather.
So, our art room, it's like a flea market, to put it like that. So we have a lot of children that would come into the art room and, pretty much very much interested in what's happening in the art room itself. Mm-hmm. Khristiana's case, every student who comes into the art room or decides that they want to do the competition, they come with their own idea. Mm-hmm. And so what I do as a teacher, I don't turn them away from their idea, but we do what we call a introspection on how you're going to present this idea and what we can add to it or, omit from the idea. So in Khristiana's case, she expressed the idea to me, and we sat down, we had a little open discussion before any prep work was done. Mm-hmm. And then we get into research background on her idea itself.
Right.
Before any draft or anything would have taken place.
Now, Khristiana is joining us now via Zoom, and I want to get straight into the thought behind the winning piece. So first off, congratulations, Khristiana.
Thank you.
And as much as your teacher has given us some insight into the prep and even a little bit of background on you, from the visuals, it seemed like you were a bit surprised. You got even emotional on that winning. So bring us to that point from your perspective. What was the initial thought on the piece that won you that $10,000 prize?
Well, the initial thought on the piece was that I wanted to get a piece that showed the everyday life. I thought that everyone would be doing like music as it was rhythm. So I decided to go with a simple approach. So, I thought, how could I get this everyday life? At first I thought maybe a marketplace, but then so was like, I will simplify it. So we went with the idea of the parlor, because there's so much life centered around the parlor.
Absolutely correct. Now, it's a very vivid piece, but I couldn't necessarily make out the medium. What was the actual type of art that you created? Was this paint? Was this pencil work? What type of medium did you use?
This was painting. Acrylic paint was used on the canvas.
And is this your preferred medium, or do you use others, Khristiana?
Well, it is my preferred, but I also use the color pencil along with other mediums. So like paper, mache, all those kinds of things.
Now, Mr. Thomas, that sounds like we might be hearing some more work or getting some more work coming out of Khristiana, perhaps, if you have anything to do with it. How does that sound?
Well, definitely. What we try to do at Speyside High School is to push students to their limit on their knowledge. We introduce all the options. We give them all
Right.
the options, and so you find that sometimes they don't know exactly what they want to do until they get into the options. And when I say options, we delve into all the different area of the visual arts, right? We impose the principle and practices of the visual arts according to the CXC curriculum. And they choose, actually, they are the ones who decide what they want to do, and then we work with them. One thing that I tell my students, including Khristiana, is that once your work starts to feel like work, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to enjoy what you're doing. And so we at Speyside High School and a lot of the other students who would have worked just as hard, you know, they all enjoy and become really, really attached to their art pieces.
Imagine. Now, Christiana, in terms of that emotion or that feeling that Mr. Thomas talks about, the enjoyment that you feel, you looked like you were in tears when they announced that winning. Tell me, what was the emotion or the feeling then?
Well, coming on to the end where she mentioned she left some key hints, as soon as she mentioned that, my heart began to, beat out of my chest. I was like so surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, this really is it. So I was just overwhelmed. I told myself I wasn't going to cry if I got the win, but it
You
just
did.
happened.
That's how we know that you're committed to it. That's the emotion that we see in what is a very, very vivid piece. Now, as much as you are the winner and we saw the big check being handed over to you, what happens next? Does the chief sec now actually have that piece perhaps hanging in his office or at home? What happens to the actual piece, first and foremost?
Well, I believe that they have it for display in the office. I believe so, but I'm not getting it back, which is a bit sad. But I'm glad to see that it would be out there.
And in that case, will we perhaps see your work elsewhere moving forward? Because this is something that Mr. Thomas is helping to nurture, but can very much be something you do well beyond secondary school. Will you be pursuing art full-time, perhaps?
Well, of course, I will be. It's my, dream to see my pieces out there. So I'll be trying my best going forward.
Now, before you close things off for us this morning, I'm going to hop back over to Mr. Thomas, because you did say that you would have had a process to help her achieve this goal. As a teacher, could you give us, in closing, a few things that you look for in a student that you help them to achieve winnings like this?
In every student that comes to Speyside High School or engage in the visual arts, once I have a discussion with every single student, and it's very simple. It's not art related. It is based on their personality and what they like about themselves. And from that perspective, it is very easy to now guide them to the point where you know exactly what is easy for them to identify with from my perspective. It's very easy. So when we start with art pieces, they know exactly what they want, what they're about. And it's easier for me to now staircase exactly what they like. It's very easy, right? It's so it in a sense it doesn't feel like it's work, but it's something that they find joy doing because they know it. They started with it. It's not self-imposed.
Fantastic. And now to you, Khristiana, if you were to give some advice to another student or anybody interested in becoming a part of the visual arts world and winning titles like you have, what would you say is your mantra, if you will?
I would say never to follow the crowd and always think outside of the box, you know. Everybody is always thinking in one way. You don't need to think that way. You can always be creative and unique with your pieces, you know.
In that case, we appreciate you thinking outside of the box. Keep doing it. Congratulations to you both, and thank you for continuing to share your talents with us here in Trinidad and Tobago. Have a great morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You.